Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. Nottingham Forest's last night signed Alex Moreno. Eddie Nketiah might be next. And Joe Worrall looks like leaving the club to join Burnley. And there's still a small matter of a Premier League game against Southampton on Saturday. We'll discuss all that and more in the company of, first of all, Mark Sutherns. Mark, good to have you with us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm very encouraged by the activity the last few days. So I'm raring to go and looking forward to Saturday.
Excellent. I've literally logged on and I'd written all my notes last night about 11:30, and they were in the private chat section. And as soon as I hit go live, they're gone. So I just had to ad lib that and do all this from my phone. So hopefully it'll still run smoothly. Second guest today is a returning Mikey Clarke. You've been away for a while, Mikey. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. It's great to be back. I'm glad we've started the season okay. I'm glad to be back on here as well and on UK soil and trying to get my body clock reset because it's been a bit crazy in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, good stuff.
Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. I suppose we should start with we'll start with Alex Moreno because it's a confirmed deal. 31 years old, season-long loan from Aston Villa. Interestingly, Mark, he was Emery's first signing, which I think is kind of a statement that he went in for him first. A player that Forest have tried to sign certainly twice. So he's on board for the season. What do you make of it in general?
Yeah, I mean, when he was at Betis and we were looking for a left back, him and Estupinan were kind of like touted as like two of the best available. And obviously Estupinan went to Brighton and Moreno in the end was snapped up by Villa. So I know that we were like he was probably a player we scouted at the time. I was really encouraged with what I saw at Villa. Obviously, he's been in a tussle with Dina at left back, and ironically, there was rumours that we were looking at Luca Dina last season, wasn't there as well? Trying to get him in the window, but instead we've gone for Moreno this time. So I'm not surprised he's moved fast because I'm sure it's a player that we had a lot of data on, a lot of scout reports on, so we knew what we were getting. And so when it became clear that he had gone down the pecking order, but Ian Maatsen has obviously signed for Villa. Maatsen got off the bench for Dina at the weekend, and when that happened, I thought, I wonder whether we'll go back in for Dina, and I didn't think necessarily Moreno was available, but there you go, it's here. He's at the club, and I think he's going to add a new dimension to our attack, and hopefully also contribute to our defence over the course of the season. Naturally, an attacking player, but can also offer plenty at the back as well. And it does seem that perhaps the tactic we've got in mind is Aina to right back and Moreno the first choice left back.
We'll come to a bit more on him in a second. I'll throw it to Mikey, but just to demonstrate his attacking qualities, Mark, you've sent the slide over, which kind of demonstrates that. So talk us through what this is and how it demonstrates what he offers.
Yeah, I mean, this is a comparison to Ole Aina's heat map last season. So in terms of minutes, Aina played 1,692 and Moreno played 1,032 for Villa. So Aina had more minutes, but you can see the average positions or the positions that Moreno took up, and he's the heat map on the left as we're looking at it, far further forward than Aina achieved for us, either on the right or the left. Obviously, Aina did play across both flanks, right back and left back. Moreno only on the left. But you can see the amount of ball and the amount of touches that Moreno saw in the final third, far more than Ole Aina did, and yet he did that in fewer minutes as well. So that alludes to the fact that Moreno is going to offer far more on the overlap with Hudson-Odoi on that side than Aina can. I mean, I think Aina's done well with Hudson-Odoi. I think the partnership is there, but the heat map doesn't lie. It shows just how often he gets beyond Hudson-Odoi to give that, a threat at the byline. He hasn't been doing it, whereas Moreno was doing that at Villa, and I'd expect him to do that when he gets in a Forest shirt. So that's the extra dimension we'll get. Ole Aina is obviously right-footed, and so his inclination is to come in field, whereas Moreno can go on the outside, and that gives us that extra uncertainty for opposing defences when we've got Moreno and Hudson-Odoi running at them. For me, that's quite a delicious prospect, and hopefully it won't take long for them to build that relationship.
I suppose, Mikey, he's had a few injury problems, so we might not see him starting games till the other side of the international break, but when he does start, is it Nico the one that's most at risk for you?
Yeah, I think so. This is really interesting, actually. I think you've probably got to caveat it with the team that Moreno was playing in. Obviously, a team that qualified for the Champions League were on the front foot a lot, but I think it paints its own picture, and it is a very exciting prospect to get someone like him in. We went from a couple of years ago at least once, I think. So finally, we've got him through the door, and it does give us options at fullback. So as Mark quite rightly says, I think Aina's probably more suited to the right-hand side. He was filling in, doing a sterling job on the left. But I think, Aina and Williams will now, I imagine, fight it out for that right-back spot. And that's great because it will again push Nico, as he's been pushed in recent years, and he's always come through that test. So you might get a little bit more out of him. And for the left-back spot, I think Moreno's going to nail it down. I think it's a great signing. I genuinely do. I think it's a guy with a bit to prove, that's lost his place in the Villa side, wants to come here. It's only up the road, so he's probably not had to move house. So you're not uprooting him and his family or anything like that, I imagine. So I think it suits all parties, and I'm really excited by it. I think it's a good one.
You might just remove your headphones. You're a little bit staticky, but the words were good, but you might be a little bit staticky. So as long as the words are good, that's the main thing. We'll talk about Southampton more, Mark, but I guess he doesn't start for you in this one. Is it a bit too soon?
Yeah, I don't think he's ready yet. Maybe it'll be after the international break that we see him. Another factor that I should point out, he scored 2 goals and 11 starts for Villa. And I know Oliveira did score for us last season. I think we can take from that Moreno will give us a bit more of a threat as well in terms of direct goal threat. He created chances at a faster rate than Oliveira as well. And as Mikey says, yes, it's in a Villa side, but I do expect that kind of trend to continue. He's going to offer us more as a chance creator, perhaps as a goal threat as well, and he's more natural going forward. So it's an exciting prospect, but perhaps one we won't see yet because obviously Williams and Nico and Oliveira can start at Southampton. There's nothing wrong with that, and we can ease Moreno in probably after the break. Depends what state his fitness is when he arrives.
Yeah, and I think you have to caveat by us we've got to be an attacking team to make the most of him as well. Because if there is a question mark against him, it's defensively. So we've got to be more like we were first half than second half. Saturday's game, certainly. Let's talk about Eddie Nketiah. I'll remove this as I've sort of teed him up. Looks like he's signing next as it stands. 25 years old, about 30 million will probably get it done. We've discussed the reaction a bit, Mikey, online. It'd be interesting to get your take. Forest fans seem quite negative. If Twitter's anything to go by, which often it isn't, but people aren't overly excited. How are you feeling about it? Prospect of him signing?
I'm excited. Is this better? A little bit sound-wise.
You're a bit quiet. Is he quiet, Mark?
I can hear him okay.
I'll try to speak up then.
Yeah, speak up. Yeah.
I'm really excited by it, and I don't want to supersede what Mark's going to talk about in a minute. But I think where my head is at is this guy is at the right age. So he's been a bit part player for a top club. I think his stats are misleading to some extent because he's usually a bench player. He's covered for Jesus and Havertz. But I think when you look at when he starts, the impact he has, and like I said, I don't want to go over what Mark's got to show. It's encouraging. I think also you've also got to consider the way teams set up against Arsenal is genuinely in that low block. I got that word wrong. So they're constantly trying to figure out little holes and patterns to break the defence down. Whereas teams don't really set up like that against Forest. There's usually space behind. There's usually teams trying to take it at us. And that really plays to his strengths. His movement is excellent. He carries the ball well. And the thought of him with the 3 in behind him, Alanga, Gibbs White, Hudson and Dolly, I think is really, really exciting. Again, it's a hard one to compare because we're not at the stage that Arsenal are. We won't face opposition like they do. And his stats are, like I say, misleading. So I'll just sort of tee up Matt from that. But I'm very much in the Eddie camp at the moment. I think it's a big signing for Forest. I'll be honest. If we can get it over the line, I think a fit Eddie in the team for the majority of the season, I think guarantees you goals, and I think it probably guarantees us staying up.
Just before I throw it to Mark, thank you very much to Ian Saxby for signing up as a member, and also Greg Forrest. Appreciate the support. Very kind of you. Right, Mark sent me a message. I can't even read it on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I've sent you some more heat maps because I love them, and it's a quite interesting comparison between Wood and Nketiah last season in terms of the areas of the pitch that they occupy. And I think it alludes to some of the stuff that Eddie can offer us. Obviously, it's not through the door yet. That's the caveat. I also sent you this morning 2 clips spanning 3 or 4 months where I've been saying I really want us to get Eddie Nketiah. So it's pretty obvious where I stand on this. I'm delighted. I think that he's a player who's going to be hungry with a big point to prove. He has never really had a sustained run in that Arsenal side, and we've got some data to show that. It's over the seasons that he's had. He had 10 starts last season, 9 the season before, 8 the season before that, 4 in 2021 and 7 in 1920. So he's had small periods where he's broken into that Arsenal side, but those starts were very rarely back to back. Mikey's right. They're a side that obviously are met often with a low block as well. The other point I would make tactically about Arsenal, they're a side who ordinarily don't play with a conventional number 9. They look for a player like Jesus or Havertz to be coming deeper and link in play. And so the supply of chances that goes the way of Nketiah when he gets into the team isn't what you would expect a natural number 9 or a goal poacher to get, because Arsenal aren't used to playing with one. So not only has he had to contend with not getting regular starts, he's had to contend with when he breaks into the side's not set up to feed a goal scorer like him. It's set up to play with a Havertz or a Jesus. They've never had conventional number 9. So I don't think we can read too much stock into his data, but one that I would pick out is the last one there, the FPL goal involvement. And that basically plots whether he's scored and assisted when on the pitch and what percentage of goals he has contributed to with either a goal or either scoring it or assisting it when on the pitch. Last season, that was 38%. So in the minutes he had, 1,082, he played a part in 38% of Arsenal's goals. That was higher than any other Arsenal player. Saka got 37. So when on the pitch last season, he was a big factor for them. You know, all of that to me points to a player that when he gets minutes, when he gets on the pitch, particularly for a sustained run, as I would expect him to get for us, he delivers. He's a good age and he's going to be very, very hungry. And I think the heat maps that I've sent you show the difference he gives us to Chris Wood. Chris Wood is on the left there, and you can see obviously Chris Wood does his business in the penalty area, as you see there, the block of red around the 6-yard box. That's where he prays. That's where he gets his goals. The movement beyond that, if you look outside the box, is a lot deeper than Nketiah on the right. So Nketiah does pick up the ball deeper, but he also carries the ball into areas just outside the box, as well as occupying areas in the box, as you see. So that region in the final third before we enter the penalty area is what Nketiah gives us. He's a player we can play the ball into. He can turn his defence and he can run into the defence and travel with the ball. Chris Wood can't do that. Chris Wood can't travel with the ball effectively. He hasn't got the pace and movement that Nketiah has got. So suddenly, around Elanga, Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White, we've got a centre forward that can not only take chances in the penalty area, he can receive the ball, turn and run at defences with pace. Now that, although Taiwo can do that to some extent, we will see very quickly just how the difference between Taiwo and Nketiah in terms of technical ability, first touch ability on the ball, there's quite a gap. Eddie Nketiah has got far more about him in that respect, and he's going to come from an Arsenal side that's highly technical. I think we're going to very much appreciate what Nketiah gives us, not only in terms of goals, but also what he contributes to the way we form attacks, the way we build attacks. So I'm incredibly excited about the signing.
I wouldn't say I'm like incredibly excited, but I am on board with it. I think that my reservation isn't around the play; it's more around the money. But the money, Mikey, is the money, isn't it? I think I put a tweet out yesterday saying, Brighton have paid 40 million for Rutter from Leeds, who hasn't got any Premier League track record really. And then Ipswich, if they stay up, have got to sign Broja for 30 million. I've seen I was just watching a Liverpool clip earlier where they were talking about selling Joe Gomez for 40 million or more as a centre half. So it's a mad market. What's your take on the price? Is the price a worry? And also, what's your any response to Mark there?
Yeah, I thought Mark articulated that brilliant. To be honest, that kind of summarises my thoughts. I am very excited by it. I'll be honest with you, if we can get him in terms of the money and what he commanded, it is. I think Fletch said it yesterday, or it might have been Anderson. It is the going rate. That's what top strikers in the Premier League, or ones that I know are going to get you a certain amount of goals. That's what they're going for. And to be honest with you, if he would have signed for, say, Leicester or Brentford or something like that, what would we be saying? Because I'd be saying, why aren't we in for him? Because he's going to score them goals. If he signed for Brentford instead of Tony, he'll get them 10, 15 goals easy. And I'd be going, oh, why aren't Forest in for him? Why couldn't we have got him? So I think the comparison between him and Jimenez, I don't know a great deal about Jimenez. I've seen him a little bit, but I know a lot about the Dutch league, hence the top that I'm wearing, the Burnley top. And I know it's not the best. That doesn't mean that he can't hit the ground running, but there's been a lot of examples of players coming over and taking time to settle in. I'm not sure we can afford players to come over in that position and take time to settle. So I can fully understand with going all in for Nketiah. I think he's less of a risk of an option in comparison. And to be honest with you, it's somebody put it in the comments and they go, I think it's exciting. It's an exciting player to get in. And, those front three of Wood, Nketiah and Taiwo, there's so many options there, different ways of playing. You can play two up if you wanted to. It doesn't change your defensive shape. You can play both up with wing backs, or you can play a more conventional back four. And even if you look at the teams around us like Ipswich, they're going to have 3 or 4 strikers of decent quality. Leicester will strengthen. There'll be a few others. We can't get past this window with 2 strikers, both of them with a bad injury record. We just can't. Chris Wood is, 34, 35, I think. And to ask...
33 in December.
I did him a disservice, I apologise. He's going really well, though. But to ask the same of him again, as he did last season, is a big ask. And we all know Taiwo, when he's on the pitch, he's a monster. When he's not, he's just not, and he disappears, and he's out for a while. So can you rely on them two? I think it's a huge risk. And bringing somebody in with that pedigree, as Mark says, at the right age, has played in a big team. Yes, he's going to command a big fee, but the output we're going to get for him, I think, will get us over the line comfortably, if I'm honest.
Thank you very much to just consumed, it says here on the screen, for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate your support as well. Very kind of you. I think, Mark, one of the things I see is like whatever we did this summer with the strikers was probably going to be a gamble, because you could just go with Wood and Awoniyi, and I would have been all right with that, but nervous because they get injured. You could have got in like a Rodrigo Ribeiro and hope they come good, but that doesn't really strengthen us. Or you could shell out a lot of money, and that's an element of gamble as well. And Jimenez would have been an element of gamble. I know you were quite keen on Jimenez based on what you'd seen of him. My only conclusion from Jimenez that was that keepers in the Dutch league are a bit rubbish from watching his highlights reel. But just pick up on that in terms of the degree of risk you think we're taking here.
I don't think it's a high degree of risk, because Nketiah has led the line for an Arsenal side. It's obviously competed at the very top of the league we're in, and Jimenez, obviously in the Dutch league there tends to be dominant teams, and his goal record is exemplary, of course. But like you say, that doesn't necessarily translate to the Premier League, immediately. It undoubtedly wouldn't. Right? He would take time to bed in. I really agree with what Mikey said in terms of what Nketiah gives us, is that a variation, and I don't think we can play 2 up front. If we had Wood and Awoniyi, those two don't really, they cross over too much. They offer much the same, I believe. Whereas you throw Nketiah into the trio, and suddenly you can play configurations of Wood and Nketiah, or Awoniyi and Nketiah, and it's that little bit extra variety. They will make different runs. They will provide different outlets for us. Nketiah will run the channels readily, and Wood and Awoniyi, that's not their game. They're more stay central. So I think Nketiah gives us that something different. Jimenez, as I mentioned before, he's not known for his brute strength or his crazy pace. He is a goal poacher, and that quality tends to be something that you need to build relationships with our players over time. Whereas I think Eddie can come in and offer something straight away. Even if he takes 3 or 4 games to get off the mark, he can bring us something different to the way we attack. And so I don't think it's a massive gamble at all. I think obviously people are worried about the fee, and I totally get that. But that, you're absolutely right. That is the market value now. For a 25-year-old Premier League striker who, many will say he's not proven, but I would say that he's proved enough that to show that he can come in and do a job for us. And absolutely right, what you said as well. If he'd have gone to another team, I'd have been very frustrated that we weren't in for him. He's a player that I've coveted for a while, and I'm delighted he's here. And I think I'm very confident that he will come in and do a very good job for us.
What qualifies as a very good job in terms of goals, and is it more also about the kind of link play and build up? So we were saying this before we started recording. We didn't actually create many chances against Bournemouth. Chris Wood thrives on service. Does Nketiah, you think, factor into us being a collective, more all-round creative team? Yeah,
I mean, as I said, I think he offers more in the build-up, and the type of service that he needs is different to Chris Wood's, I would say. Chris Wood needs one-touch finishes, really, either his head or his feet. Nketiah doesn't. Nketiah's got the agility and the technique on the ball to manufacture chances, move his feet and get around defenders and get shots away. Chris Wood isn't that type of player. With Chris Wood, you need to get it to him in a region of the pitch where he can hit it first time or within 1 or 2 touches. Nketiah's not that. He will travel with the ball. We saw last year he scored a goal from 30 yards. I know Chris Wood did that last year, but when he did that for us in that game, we were like, wow, I've never seen Chris Wood score a goal like that. There's more of that in Nketiah's armoury. So he's different in what he can offer, and it's different in terms of the service that he's going to need. I can see him working very well with Gibbs White. One of the things that Gibbs White coordinated with Brennan Johnson was the movement that Brennan offered. The movement off the shoulder of the defender, and Gibbs White was able to find him very often with through balls. We haven't got that relationship between Chris Wood or Awani and Gibbs White. I mean, I think it could develop with Awani. He does have pace, he does have movement, but I think in both cases, Eddie Nketiah offers more pace and more movement. So I expect Gibbs White and Eddie Nketiah to quickly form a relationship that will lead to returns. What does a goal return look for Eddie? If he's the first choice striker and he's playing week in, week out, I would expect somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 goals, no problem from him. I automatically look at it and think the depth that he now gives us with Wood and Awani means I'm not now looking over our shoulder anywhere near as like I was after Saturday's result. I don't think now we'll be in the mix. I think we'll be clearer now as a result of signing a player like Nketiah.
I'll just play devil's advocate then, because I am on board with the signing. You say 10 to 15 goals. Wood and Taiwo will get 10 to 15 goals. I suppose, Mikey, people are going to say, and some people text me are saying, well, he's no better than them. Why are we spending 30 million?
He's different to them. That's the thing. And he offers his depth and movement and flexibility. And like I said before, can you rely on the whole season on the 2 strikers that we have now with their injury records? And Wood's season last season was phenomenal. He was topping the stats charts for his output at one stage in the whole of the league. To ask him to do the same again and come up with another 12, 13, 14, 15 goals is a big ask. So I just think it's like I said before, even Ipswich are getting, I said even Ipswich, that's disrespectful. Teams that are getting promoted are even getting 3 or 4 strikers with Premier League nous about them to try and keep them up in this division. The competition is insane. So we need depth. And there'll be games where Eddie is potentially not suited to, potentially. And you might play a Chris Wood or a Taiwo, and you've got cup games as well. We all hope for a couple of good cup runs. You're going to need a squad. You're going to need options. You're going to need different things in different games when you're chasing, when you're holding on, when you need a target man like Chris Wood to come on and show all his experience. And it just gives us that extra tick in the box. I'd have been really nervous if we haven't got... We're talking like he's already in. I'm assuming that we get this one over the door, but assuming he does come in, I just think it rounds us off. It's not a case of he's better than him and his output will be the same. It's a collective effort over 9 months of the season in the hardest league in the world. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, just a small caveat, as Mikey said, as we're talking at 10 a.m., he hasn't signed, and until it's a done deal, you never quite know with Forest or any other club. So yeah, certainly bear that in mind. Thank you for Dominic for signing up. 4 people signed up today. That's great. Appreciate your support as well, Dominic. Last thing on Nketiah and the strikers, Mark. it doesn't throw Wood and Tyro's future into doubt at all, because they've still got big roles to play. But how the next season shakes out for them will be interesting, especially with Tyro, I think, because he's a bit younger than Chris and has a bit more of his career ahead of him.
Yeah, it gives us the option of not having to rush Tyro back and give him more time to get his fitness up. He clearly needs it. I mean, I think he's still a month away from being anywhere near at his sharpest. And Nketiah wouldn't, he adds goals to the squad. That's the factor here, because Tyro and Chris Wood, when given opportunities, will score goals as well. So we've got an addition of goal power into the squad, which we needed. And I do expect Nketiah to be the first choice, but I would say that Wood and Awani are excellent impact subs to either offer us a pairing when we're chasing a game, or to offer something different when if Nketiah hasn't broken the defence, we've got a target man or someone with more strength and stronger in the air to change the way we attack in the final 20 minutes. So we haven't got that at the moment. We haven't got any variation at all. And we saw last season we were bringing an 18-year-old off the bench when desperately chasing games. So suddenly, Nuno's got more players on the bench now that can have an impact, and that's key. I think Saturday we saw with Bournemouth that they were throwing players on the pitch to try and chase that equalise. I mean, like the number of changes Areola made, and eventually they found a way through. Now that's what I want for Forest. I want Nuno to have 5 options there that he can throw on the pitch when chasing a game, and every one of them adds something different and adds a new variation that can cause an opponent trouble. And in the striker department, we haven't had that. So that's what we've got now. And that is an exciting prospect. And Wood and Awani will still get minutes. We'll still get starts. And it means that the pressure on Nketiah to come in and score goals immediately isn't there, because we've got someone reliable in Chris Wood and someone potentially reliable in Awani when fit.
Yeah, we'll come on to teams, but I still expect Chris Wood to start at least the next 2 games, certainly, and probably the third as well, because Liverpool isn't necessarily a game for Nketiah leading the line on his own. But we'll discuss that down the line. 382 people with us, which is great. Do us a favour and hit like on the video if you haven't already. And also a quick word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. Next home game is against Wolves. Oasis and gigs straight after full time. Free entry, of course. You can get a lovely pizza, as the video on screen demonstrates. All the outside barbecue course. Lots and lots of staff, as Greg Mitchell was saying as well, so you don't have to wait too long for a drink. So, yeah, thanks very much to the Nav, as always. Bit more transfer stuff before we move on to Southampton. I appreciate the clock's ticking, but have to recognise Joe Worrall, Mikey. Looks like he's off to Burnley. It seems like it's signed and it's basically sealed. And we've spoken a lot about Joe, but I think he's trying to talk about what his legacy will be when he goes. What's his contribution to Forest in your assessment?
Good question. I remember on a pre-season tour in Portugal, myself and my wife Lindsay were away, and Forest just rocked up. We didn't know they were touring when we booked it, but we went to see a pre-season game, and Joe Worrall, a young kid, played at centre back, and Lindsay said to me, "He's going to captain Forest in the Premier League." To which I just laughed at her and said, "That's absolutely ridiculous. That's not going to happen," because we were so far off the Premier League, and I'd only just seen him for 5 minutes. But he looked good. He looked better than what we had at the time, if I'm honest. And lo and behold, a few seasons later, he is the captain when we have the most remarkable turnaround in the season, I think, the I've certainly ever seen in my life. And that's his legacy, and he captained Forest in the Premier League. And I was fortunate enough to be at Chelsea away when he produced it was a whole team performance, by the way, but he was a standout. He was magnificent. And that just shows what he's all about. The man loves the club, from the city. Got nothing but huge respect for him. And I will say that if it's Burnley, I think that's a good move for him, because I reckon they'll blitz that league this season, and next season he'll be a Premier League player again and probably start for them. So I think it's a wise move, and good luck to him. Got nothing but respect for the guy.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for him. Obviously, Scott Parker's Burnley are going to be very different to Vincent Kompany's Burnley, and I think he could do really well there. I put on Twitter last night, I referenced that Chelsea game. I mean, that was probably summed up everything that he was about as a player and a person, because he was such awful circumstances for him with the death of his uncle just before the game. And like I say, that summed up what he was all about. Obviously, he had his faults as a Premier League player, and it feels like a good move for him. But I'm glad he's getting respect online, because it got a bit over the top. Certainly last season, the way people were kind of denigrating him. So I'm pleased that he's been recognised, and certainly wish him every success in future, and hope he gets a great reception when he comes back. Anything you want to add, Mark?
No, I mean, Mikey said it very eloquently. I mean, he's been a magnificent servant to the club. And for me, he was the captain and a crucial component of that three-man bedrock defence that we had with Cook and McKenna that got us up. And that team that got us up under Cooper will be remembered forever, I believe. And so his legacy is fantastic. And I'm pleased for Joe that he's got his move, because he deserves to play football. He's a good footballer. He's an excellent centre half in the Championship, and I still think that he could prove himself at the top flight as well. And I think Mikey's right; he will slot in that Burnley side. I presume they're going to sell O'Shea, so he's going to get regular starts there. Burnley are going to come up, no question. The attacking talent they got is going to see them through, and he'll be in the Premier League again next year, and hopefully get some starts for them, and prove to anyone that had any doubts that he can perform at the top level that he can. So. Yeah, it's a great move, and it's right for him. But just thanks for what you did for us and being part of that team that is now in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would really love to see him get just a season of Premier League football to see how he does, because we're judging him off. He was in and out of that team when we stayed up. I think he came off the bench 5 times in one season, so which is mad. So, and then he only started like 6 games last season. So the sample size of actual Premier League football isn't that massive for us to be saying he can't cut it. So yeah, I really love him to get another crack at the Premier League and see how he goes. And like Mark says, I think he probably will with Burnley. Let's move on to Southampton then. We're 31 minutes into a match preview. We haven't talked about the game. Mikey, I said yesterday with Tales and Paul Anderson and Nick Mashter that I thought it was a really good test for us. Before this, if we beat Bournemouth, I'd be feeling super optimistic. But now I'm looking at it and think, well, it's a tricky looking game. How are you feeling about it?
I've changed my mind. Right, I'm going to be honest. So somebody asked in the comments, did I get Wi-Fi on the plane on the way back? I did, but it cut out in the second half of the Bournemouth game. So we were leading 1-0. I was happy. And when I landed at Dover, it was 1-1. I was fuming. So if you would have asked me this question a couple of days ago, I'd have been a bit more pessimistic and thinking about letting in late goals yet again, what we're doing. But I've had a chance to sort of get over it. And I think it's almost a perfect game for us. So the way Southampton are on a high, right? They have a very distinct way of playing under Russell Martin, but they do give away a lot of chances to give the ball away a lot. So I think we've got the players in the team to really capitalise from that. So if you watch them play, they never kick it on. They always roll it out. They build through the thirds and they wait and they are patient. Whether that's going to stand them in good stead in the Premier League against better teams that do exactly the same thing is a different argument. In fact, I've got my money on Russell Martin being the first casualty of the manager, if I'm honest. So there's my opinion. But I think this is a great test for us. And I think if we pick the right team that can explode once that turnover happens and they do give the ball away, I reckon will really hurt them. So the more I've had a chance to think about it, the more I think that it's definitely a game that we can go there and look to try and bring all 3 points back. But if not, I think we're pretty, not nailed on, but I'd be gutted if they turn us over, because I just think we're one of them teams that can just destroy them on the transition. And when we put the teams up, I'll talk to it a bit more. But I'm positive. I think we'll get something.
I think it's an interesting matchup for us, Mark, because obviously, they had defeat in their first game, but played well. First home game back in the Premier League, the fans will be up for it. But it feels like we match up quite well against them. I was thinking the Burnley away game last season, where we just sat. I text Prutz about this as well. How would you go about the game? And I said, would you let them have the ball and then pounce on mistakes and go on the counter attack? And he thought that was the best way to go. And I do as well. Is it a good matchup for us because we can do that, or are you fearful?
It is a good matchup in that respect. There's no question that the way they play could play into our hands. I mean, I remember Russell Martin coming to the City Ground with Swansea against us, and I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I've seen tippy-tappy, tick-attacker football before, but never in England, so to speak. And the way they play inconsequential passes between defenders constantly. And I guess that's what we can expect from Southampton, particularly at home. And then, we have to set traps. We have to set traps, and then we have to take those chances. And Nuno will know what to do. He's done that with his Wolves team, and he's done it with Forest. We were the leading counter-attacking team last season. We scored more goals on counter than any other Premier League club. But Russell Martin will be aware of that as well. That's not really lost on him. So I do like Russell Martin. Like Mikey, I'm a bit cynical about whether the football they play is going to directly translate. I think the only word of caution I've got is when you play the promoted sides, I think you want to play them after 10 games. Because after 10 games, some of the spirit, some of the fight has been knocked out of them, so to speak, because we it was the opposite for us. But I've seen in the past teams like Norwich come up, start very well, then the squad depth found them out. They're up against sides that have got more off the bench, and suddenly the results turn, and then the morale drips out of the team, so to speak. Southampton aren't in that state at the moment. They're on a high. They lost a game, but they had a lot of territory and a lot of chances. They will be licking their lips at the prospect of a home game against a team that they could possibly beat, which is how they'll see us. So I think the timing of playing Southampton away is not great for us, because the morale's there and they will come at us. Whereas in 10 games' time, Southampton at home might be a bit easier when they've had a few beatings. So, I'm a little bit worried, to be honest. And quite frankly, I think I would take a point at this stage, because I think, with the signings we've made, I think we can pose problems to better teams, and we don't necessarily have to go into every game against like Southampton and go, we must win this. Obviously, there'll be expectation that we would win it. But I think it's going to be a difficult game, and we might have to make do with a point.
I wouldn't object to a point, to be honest. A point in the road is a decent point in the road early season. Obviously, it depends how the game plays out. We could be leading after 87 minutes and be fuming. So, I think that's fair. There was a question about Taiwo in the chat that I saw Greg asked. He asked me on Twitter as well. No, I've not heard anything about Taiwo being unsettled. There was a question at the end of last season where a journalist asked him about his future, and I think it was in the context of if we get relegated, and we didn't get relegated. So I've not heard anything on Taiwo being unsettled at all. Let's put up a possible lineup then that I think me and Mikey and Mark roughly agree on this. I'll just read it out as normal for people who are listening, not watching. Matt Sells in goal, Williams, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Aina back four. Sangare and Yates in midfield, Elanga, Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi in support of Chris Wood. That's regardless of Nketiah signing and Alex Moreno signing. There's a few caveats around that because Nuno's press conference is at 1:30. Obviously, Aina looked like he went off injured in particular, possibly Elanga as well. So it may need some qualification. And I think Milenkovic is available, having served a suspension. Certainly hope he is. I'll ask the chaps a few thoughts on some names. But Mikey, do you want to talk us through your thinking?
Yes, indeed. So just a couple of things, a couple of debates that I had in my head. So does Milenkovic come in for Willy Bolly? Bolly, by all accounts, did well on Saturday. So I don't think it's a reflection on him, but I think we've paid good money for Milenkovic, and I think he's seen as a future bedrock of the back four. So I believe that when he's available, and he is for this game, I think he comes in, if I'm honest. So that was my thinking there. Moreno's probably signed a little bit too late, but if Aina is struggling, then there is a possibility he could come in. I think Yatesy keeps his place, obviously, next to Sangare. The main debate that I had was around those wingers, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. And my thinking was, initially, away from home, we saw it a little bit in pre-season. He was playing Anderson out there, he was playing Dominguez out there, and they were ratting around and coming inside and making a box to stop the opposition sort of passing through us. And I was thinking, would this work against Southampton? I was thinking, probably, yeah, the way they play. So I was really close to selecting Dominguez and or Anderson. But then I flipped my thinking and thought, well, when we win the ball back, and we will, because they give it away a lot, who do you want on that ball pressing forward? Who do you want? You want Callum and you want Anthony Elanga with his pace, don't you? So I've gone for a more positive outlook to try and, as Mark quite rightly said, set traps and hit them on the break. But what I expect to potentially see is, if we do go in the lead and if the game goes how I think it's going to go, I think those wingers will be replaced with Anderson and Dominguez, and they'll tighten up in midfield and stop Southampton passing through us. So I wouldn't be averse to starting with that. And as you said, Matt, we'll have to see injuries. There might be one or two tweaks, but I reckon that's pretty much going to be what it's going to go with.
Would that be your team, Mark? Any differences?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mikey's hit the nail on the head. There's an option that we could go there a bit more back foot and not play both wingers. It would be my team. I think that Milinkovic is probably the doubt. Bolly for me was man of the match on Saturday, so he'd be unfortunate to lose his place. So that's the only one that I would question. What I worry about a little bit is that if we don't go there with Hudson-Odoi and Elanga, Walker Peters is a key player for them, and he might invert. He spends a lot of time on the ball, and yeah, he's a danger because he sets up a lot of their play. They've got Sugawara who plays right back, and Walker Peters will play left back, we think, right? So if we play the Hudson-Odoi and Elanga and we can keep them wide, and widen the pitch, it will prevent potentially, hopefully, Walker Peters being a key factor, because he won't be able to invert quite as much. Because if we get Elanga up against Bednarak on that side, then we're laughing, because he's going to, or Jack Stevens is that side centre back. We can expose Elanga against either of those two. It's happy days. So Walker Peters, if Elanga plays, is going to be worried about coming forward and inverting. So I want Elanga and Hudson-Odoi to play for that reason. I'm a little bit concerned that Nuno will go, no, I'm going to play Dominguez there and tuck in, put more bodies in the midfield and try and break up play there and win the ball back, and then spring Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi from there. I would rather go with two wingers. So I hope this is the team, because it's more front foot and it will pose Southampton more problems rather than us looking to contain them.
Yeah, I'd like to play the two wingers in this game, not in every away game, but I feel like this is one that could really work. I think the centre halves question is really marginal between Milinkovic and Bolly. I mean, there's no reason to drop Bolly, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays. I think the reason Milinkovic probably plays, what Mikey said, we've spent good money on him and we see him as the long-term option. And if he's fit and available, having had a pre-season and trained with us, then equally I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays. So I think Milinkovic probably will play, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it is Bolly. And he's certainly done nothing wrong at all in the previous game. Milinkovic might just be a bit better on the ball. That's an assumption of mine, though, having not seen much of him. The other one, Mikey, that's interesting is Ryan Yates. A few people in the chat saying Elliot Anderson should come in. Are you happy with Yates, knowing that he had a very good game against Bournemouth?
Yeah, I managed to watch the extended highlights and obviously got the feedback from Lindsay, who was at the game, and a few friends. I think I said at the start of the season, when we was doing all the pre-season shows, that I think Yatesy will feature more away from home than home. And that was just feat of circumstance that he came in for that first game. Obviously, that's wishes to Danilo. But I think he didn't let anybody down. He was crucial in the goal. And I think, just if you're looking at this game on its own in isolation, I think this is a game that you probably play Yates, if I'm honest. Especially if you're not going to play Dominguez, making that extra third man by cutting back inside. I think Yatesy starts. You've got to look at what's coming up as well. For the fixtures coming up, we've got a cup game, we've got Wolves at home, we've got Liverpool away. He's going to feature in a couple of them as well, which I'm not averse to. So do get the argument with playing a bit more front foot, maybe sticking Dominguez in there, or Anderson, who did well when he came on as well, and he's obviously a very talented footballer with that forward thinking. But I think that might feature maybe slightly more against Wolves. I think if you're going to play the two wingers and be a bit positive, you probably need that extra shielder, just for the way Southampton play. The drop off they've got, whether Edozie plays or whether they cut inside or not. I'm just trying to think. Watching them, they're quite fluid going forward. So you probably need that extra person sat in front of the back four, especially if one of your centre-backs is making his debut. So I think the reasons for playing Yates, for me, outweigh the reasons not for playing him. But I do expect a lot of changes in the cup game. Cup game's next, isn't it? And then it's Wolves. Is it Newcastle next?
Newcastle next Wednesday, yeah. And then it's Wolves, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be changes for that. Like, if this is right, then I think Bolly will come in. You'll probably see a debut for the keeper. Anderson will play. So, like I said before in the previous answer to the Nketiah question, it's a long season, lots of games, different competitions. You're going to need different options. But I think for this game, Yates is ideally suited.
What about you, Mark? I suppose Yates versus Anderson long term is a different question, probably, I would say. What about for this game?
Well, we're not going to have a lot of the ball. I imagine we're going to have somewhere in the region of 15, 20, 25% possession. So, getting quality on the pitch, on the ball, perhaps isn't the priority. It's more about the press and the energy you need in midfield to win the ball back. So it looks like it's falling the way of Yates here. Anderson will get the matches where I think at home is where you play Anderson, and possibly and it's Anderson and Sangare when we need to break teams down. Wolves at home is a classic, right? I don't think Wolves are going to turn up with loads of ambition. They'll look to play the same way that we do away from home, which is contain and break. So we need Anderson there to help us break that down. Whereas, away at Southampton, I think it's the Yates game. So yeah, it's horses for courses. We knew that would be the case with Yates, and this is one of his games, I think. So I don't see there's a much debate there. If Anderson plays, it'll be for one of the wide men, but I hope that doesn't happen because I want us to go front foot and give them something to think about from the start, rather than look to try and contain them as we would be if we play Dominguez or Anderson out wide.
Can I just chip in that?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Just one from me. Do you think possession will be as low as that then? Because I know they had 75% in Newcastle, albeit against 10 men. And I did see them a lot last season, and they do pass the ball for fun, left, right. I was thinking maybe we get 30 or 35. Do you think it could even be lower than that? Then?
Depends how we play it. I mean, if we go there and try and go toe for toe and press, then it'll be less than that. But I wonder whether Nuno will just not press too hard, because this is the way they play, and they will be resistant to that to some extent. I think when Swansea came and Martin turned up with that team, Cooper didn't press too much. He just sat back and waited for them to misplace passes. So if we do that, if we just sit back and go, right, well, you can pass it around us, but eventually someone's going to miscontrol, you're going to misplace a pass, then we'll break on you. Then they will have 80% possession. But if we press harder, then because they're not going to, it's going to be more shared. So I don't know how we're going to play it. I don't think necessarily we're going to go there and press. I think we're going to go back and sit back and wait for them to make mistakes. So I think it could be in the region of 75, 80% for them. But then obviously it depends on the game state where it goes from there. If they get 1-0 up or we go 1-0 up, it changes everything, doesn't it? So it depends on when that first goal comes.
Yeah, I think it'll be like 30, 35 for us. But I think Southampton might be this season's Burnley. Like, teams would just funnel Burnley after a few weeks, funnel Burnley into the areas they wanted them to, make them make a mistake, and then attack them. And company didn't change. So interested to see if Russell Martin does. I don't think he will at this stage of the season. So I think, like Mark, that's probably how the game pans out. And can we create enough good chances for Chris Wood to bury one or two of them? Just a quick word for our second sponsors, Home Move Estate Agents. I've actually got a property to show you this week. So this is where Ben Sales earns his money.
Is this Nketiah's new house we're showing him?
It's a lovely house. Where Ben has written, we're absolutely thrilled to present this remarkable 6-bedroom detached home, exuding timeless elegance and rich heritage, with origins dating back to circa 1720. It offers 326 square meters of accommodation, loads of space, while ideally positioned in a great location. It's in Gedling, by the way, and the link for the property is in the description. It has got 6 bedrooms, 3 reception rooms, open plan lounge, and diner, beautifully presented, original period features with an outbuilding, off-road parking, and an EPC rating of D. Dare I ask the chaps for a valuation if they play along with this kind of stuff or not? Does anyone want to venture a number?
This is like selling Sunset now, Matt.
I know.
You go first, Mikey. Go on.
I'm just texting Lindsay to check out online bank account.
I can just tell you if you want, because if you say the wrong number, then it's going to look really bad. So shall I just tell you? I'll be honest. I've got it in my head, so I'll go on. Tell me. Okay, it's 600,000.
Oh, I'd have gone higher than that.
Yeah,
50. Yeah.
I read it. I showed it to Mrs. Davis, and she said like 800,000 to $1 million. So if someone buys that house from seeing that video, tell Ben, or if you view it, and we'll each request a little cut. Salesmanship. But that was a good video and lovely looking house. Right, let's move on. Let's finish up. Any final thoughts on anything we've said today? Mikey, any final thoughts on Southampton?
Only that I'm still in my positive mindset, which I promised everybody that I was going to stay in as long as I possibly could. Obviously disappointed with how the Bournemouth game ended, but as the chap said yesterday, it's a point on the opening day, and if we follow it up with a couple of good performances, then it's a solid start to the season. And the more I think about the game on Saturday, the more I think if we set up right, and if we, as Mark said, set traps, great phrase, I'm going to use it now. The more we do that, and the more we capitalise on it, I genuinely think that we'll get something. In fact, I'm positive. I think we'll win. I think we'll have too much for them, and the bench options that we could have, again, might prove all the difference. So as long as we stay in the game, as long as we don't do anything daft, just let them pass themselves out, we've got the weapons up front to hurt them. So my prediction is I think we'll win 2-1.
Lovely. What shirt are you wearing today? Someone's asking in the chat. Is that
Venlo? VVV Venlo, Dutch team, second division. It's like the third shirt. Can I say one more thing actually about Venlo? I saw something on Twitter. It's an old post from like 10 years ago. I think I sent it to you, Matt. I think in one state or something, divorces. There was like 30 divorces, all citing Football Manager, and teams are playing. And obviously, this is kind of where I know Venlo from. One example of a guy taking his wife on honeymoon just so he could see his Belgian second division team. And the reason that it made me laugh is I tried to take Lindsay to Venlo a few years ago, and she wasn't having any of it. But I was upfront and honest and said, look, come to Venlo. It's a bit like West Bridgeford 10, 15 years ago. But it has a team. And she was like, nah, go with your mates. So it just kind of made me laugh. But yeah, I'm always repping my crazy teams from around the world. They're not very good this season. Got a whole new team. But there you go.
Hopefully Forest are better. It wasn't Belgium for the honeymoon. It was Bulgaria, I think. It took his wife to Bulgaria to watch the team that he managed on Football Manager. I didn't tell her. Right. Mark, any final thoughts, any words of wisdom before we depart?
I've just been looking at Southampton at Newcastle, and 29 minutes Share was sent off. At that point, Southampton had 3 shots and they'd had 65% possession at Newcastle away on the first day of the season. So we can't underestimate them. If they go to St James's Park and have 65% possession, yeah, they're going to have 75-80% possession at home against us. So we can't get frustrated though. So when watching the game, if you are watching the game or going to the game, we've got to be patient. And yeah, I point back again to the Swansea game at the City Ground where for 20-25 minutes, it looked like we weren't going to get the ball off, and we set traps and we won, and we ran out 5-1 winners. So I think that we've just got to be patient in our approach. I hope Nuno goes in a positive frame of mind and plays the 2 wingers, because I do think that's where the joy will come. They play with wing backs. If we can get our wingers up against either side of the centre backs, then in those channels, then that's where we'll cause some trouble. So, yeah, I think for me, it's all about that initial team selection. I was a little bit concerned at some of the subs at the weekend, Dominguez in particular. So hopefully Nuno corrects that in his starting lineup and goes front foot and goes for 3 points. But I would take a point.
Are you looking forward to watching the game, Mark?
Well, do you know what I'm doing on Saturday?
Yeah, I know what you're doing. Yeah, as in if you want to reference it or not.
I'm doing the Match of the Day challenge on Saturday for my channel Black Box with Az. So what we do is we avoid the score. It's a bit like the Lightly Lads episode, if you're old enough to remember that, where they don't want to know the England score and then watch the game. We do this for the Premier League game. So we avoid the football all day. We don't know the scores, and then we sit down and watch Match of the Day together and live stream our reactions. Now, from a fantasy football perspective, that's painful enough, because previous times we've done this, I've had to watch players that I've just sold score points aplenty. It's going to be equally hard for me, because I obviously won't know the Forest score. I'll be watching Forest on Match of the Day, not knowing the outcome. So that's going to be, it could be a double whammy for me. So yeah, it's fun, but it's also excruciating. So that'll be an experience on Saturday.
Excellent. No doubt it will. Right, we'll be back. I could be recording 4 podcasts today. We'll hear a Southampton opposition preview tomorrow, as Dave asks in the chat. I'm speaking to an Arsenal fan I know about Nketiah, and a Villa fan about Moreno, to find out a bit more about them. And then post-match on Saturday, not quite sure of the lineup yet. Chris is definitely one person, and we shall see who else joins me. If you have enjoyed this, do us a favour and hit like on the video. It makes a huge difference with the YouTube algorithm. Do subscribe, do become a channel member like the other 4 guys did today, and leave us a lovely review on iTunes. Mikey, thank you very much.
Hey, brilliant. Good to be back and good to see you guys. I was gutted to miss Saturday's game against Bournemouth, so I'm going to go for it against Wolves. Yeah, really looking forward to that, and let's keep the positivity going. Let's get something on Saturday, and then let's go and beat Newcastle and beat Wolves.
I mean, you did send us in WhatsApp repeated shots of you in first class on, Doha Airlines. Oh, it's so tough. I'm in Manila drinking champagne, looking over the city at midnight, and the hours you were up were mental as well. Like awake at 4 a.m. because you just worked on English time still. So yeah, not total sympathy for you, but good to have you back. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to having Mikey at Wolves and seeing him there, and for the Gibbs White derby, of course. Looking forward to that.
Exactly. I think we're all at Wolves, so that's a game to look forward to. But obviously, Southampton first. We'll break that all down on Saturday and then into Monday. But hopefully, we shall see you for one of the litany of podcasts I've got coming up in the next few days. But if we don't, we shall see you soon.